quote, "I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of that ridiculous moniker, Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington." President Trump saying this on social media. Okay, Stephen A., great to have you still here with us. What's your reaction to this story when you heard this statement from President Trump?
Well, I think it's the president being petty. I think it's him being evasive because the reality is that no matter how good he wants people to believe things are with the big, beautiful bill and other things that have been transpiring, tariff wars, the border issues or whatever, if you're on the right, obviously you're happy with a lot of things that are going on. And there's nothing to take credit away from that. I'll leave the political evaluations to other people. But nevertheless, there are millions upon millions of people in the United States of America that are not necessarily happy with some of the things that he's doing. So what does he do? He caters to his base. Because when you look at the Redskins name, obviously it's something that needed to be changed. And by him bringing that issue up, we all know from a political landscape, it's much ado about nothing. It's just him catering to his base to make sure that he serves to appease them in some way, to distract them from other issues, including the Epstein files, by the way, because a lot of people associated with the MAGA right want those files released. And you even have Republican representatives on the Hill wanting those files released, wanting to see for themselves because they're not buying what the administration is saying when they say that there's absolutely nothing there. But I think it's important to really zone in and focus on Washington, D.C. and what's transpiring here. The president, obviously, since he arrived in office January 21st, has proceeded to let go nearly 300,000 federal employees since he's taken office. What does that mean for Washington, D.C.? Remember, Washington, D.C. is a one-industry town. It's politics and pretty much nothing else. And so when you talk about the bevy of individuals that are going to be unemployed, think about what transpires there. Think about the effect that's going to have on homelessness. Think about the effect that's going to have on crime, on unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really, really dire situation that's potentially developing in the nation's capital. And so with all of that going on, understand that's relevant because not only has Josh Harris, the owner, and his group owning the Washington Commanders pledged to put in anywhere from $2.5 to $2.7 billion of their own money, they were hoping to dollars from Washington, D.C. And the city council has yet to approve that. A vote is coming at the end of the month in regards to that. But it's not looking that promising because they're asking the question, how in God's name are we going to justify throwing $1 billion into a new stadium when in fact we have all of these folks losing their jobs and we're struggling right now? We're going to need to put that money to other use. And so because of that, Josh Harris and his group may be in an absolute pinch. Trump recognizes that and has ingratiated himself into a situation he really has no business being in. Yes, the old RFK Stadium ground where the Redskins used to play when they were the Redskins is federal territory. That's federal ground. That's true. But on January 5th of this year, about 15 days or so before Joe Biden left in office, he basically signed in the law and act that gave the city district of Columbia 99-year lease, where essentially it's not necessarily, even though it's still officially federal territory, it's not being run by the federal government. So again, all of that speaks to Donald Trump basically engaging in pomp and circumstance, trying to make noise, ingratiate himself further with his base to show that he is indeed living up to the promises that he's made in terms of addressing woke culture and things of that nature. But that's all it's about. It's not to say that it's not going to be an inconvenience, because I know that it can be to Josh Harris, because I think he made the mistake of saying we're never doing anything, we're not changing, because what Trump has shown religiously, he's willing to double down and make this as hard as he possibly can. But by the looks of the law and what has transpired on the books, it seems to be little to nothing that Trump can do about this other than make noise. But again, it does assist in him appealing to his base. We understand.
Stephen A., hold that thought, because I have Ryan Clark with us, who, of course, played for this franchise. And as I mentioned that quote earlier where President Trump said there's a big clamoring for this, and our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen.
Well, I think, first of all, as I know, the Native American community or the indigenous community, they don't want to be called Indians, right? And it was a swell from them that initially got the name changed to the Commanders, also changed the Cleveland name to the Guardians. And what this is to me is a smokescreen from the president, and understanding there isn't much that he can do in this situation that will hinder Josh Harris and the Washington Commanders from building the new RFK Stadium. But he also understands that the reason it will be difficult for him is because the country is not in the state that people expected it to be once he was reelected. And so much of his groundswell of support came from hate. It came from separatism. It came from division. This is just another opportunity to do that. Yes, we have all of these federal workers, and we have all of these people who are losing jobs. We don't have the money in order to give $1 billion and continue to keep our city running. And so with that, with it taking a long time, now the people who won't do the research, the people who don't care about what's going on, they'll think that I've doubled down in holding up this stadium based on its name. And so to me, it's just another opportunity for his supporters, for President Trump as well, to say, this is what I ran on. These are the reasons you have supported me. And no matter what I'm doing and the way it's hurting the country, I will continue to be the person you voted for, if not the politician.
Stephen A.
Well, I think it's important to point out, listen, both sides can be guilty for a lot of stuff that's going on. This is not a political show, so we're not going to go there. But the reality is that whether we like it or not, I didn't vote for him, you didn't vote for him, other people didn't vote for him, but 77 million people did vote for him. And in their eyes, outside of the Epstein files, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. So they applaud this, and I think the alarming part is that the positions that he takes, as evasive as it may appear from time to time, and I think this is clearly an evasive measure to distract attention, because this is meaningless. This is not a fight that he needs to engage in. It really makes no sense whatsoever, but nevertheless, it is what it is, and he's going to have to deal with that. But I definitely do think it's an evasive measure on his part, and Josh Harris, I think, fell into it, and now it's a tricky situation, because if he's going to create that noise and going to create some problems, and on top of it all, you can't get that $1 billion from the city council, okay, it can be problematic. And if you're watching the District of Columbia, you do have to justify throwing $1 billion into this project when federal workers are being let go and unemployment is threatening to ravage that particular area. That's not the case as of yet. But make no mistake about it, these are the kind of things that can end up being problematic if he continues to go the route that he's going. And I think it's something that gives you cause to pause if you're Josh Harris and his group. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what transpires.
I think what's difficult is when you hold that office, it's about all people. It's not about a section of people. It's not about the people that have supported you or the people that have voted for you. And so if there has been a group of individuals that say there is something that is